This happened a few weeks ago. I was 32, freshly divorced, and a graphic designer looking for a change of scenery. I thought moving to this cozy town filled with holiday cheer would lift my spirits. The decorations were lovely, and the laughter of children warmed the chilly air. I never imagined what was about to unfold. Right from the start, things felt a bit off. On my first night, a strange chill filled the air. I heard faint sounds of holiday music from my neighbor's house. At that moment, I thought it was just a quirky tradition, nothing to worry about. Maybe I just needed to adjust to my new surroundings. I should have trusted my gut. Over the next few nights, I woke up to strange gifts on my doorstep. Old toys and worn ornaments appeared. I wasn't sure who was leaving them for me. I felt confusion and unease. Were the neighbors trying to welcome me, or was there something more sinister going on? Every time I found another gift, my heart raced. I felt a knot in my stomach that wouldn't go away. As the days passed, I started seeing shadowy figures out of the corner of my eye. They looked like kids playing, but when I turned to look, nobody was there. Their laughter echoed, but it didn't sound innocent anymore. It felt mocking, like a cruel joke. One evening, I sat at my kitchen table, feeling like I was being watched. One night, I decided to visit my neighbors. I knocked on doors, but no one answered. It was strange. All the lights were on. I could even hear faint laughter coming from inside their homes. I stood at Mrs. Dahlia's door, hoping she would be friendly. When she opened it, she stared blankly at me as if she didn't recognize me. Her silence felt heavy. The unsettling gifts kept coming. Each one was more bizarre than the last. I didn't want to keep them, but tossing them felt wrong. I thought I was going crazy. I didn't know if my mind was playing tricks on me or if it was something darker from the town's past. I wanted answers, but the neighborhood kids just laughed when I asked them. Their laughter sent chills through me. One cold night, I stood outside trying to grasp what was happening. Suddenly, I felt a presence beside me. I turned, expecting to see someone, but there was nothing, just darkness. Then I heard my neighbor call out, "Why are you standing here alone?" I turned, and my heart dropped. Nobody was there. I felt desperate to escape whatever was happening. I started avoiding the neighbors. Every time I went outside, I felt those eyes on me. One evening when I was feeling brave, I went to my front porch. I held my breath. That's when I saw it again, a figure at the edge of my vision. I blinked, and it disappeared. The following night, I finally had enough. I gathered all the strange gifts and placed them outside in a box. I didn't want them anymore. When I turned back to the door, I saw a shadow pass by the window. My heart raced, and I felt the weight of those kids' laughter surrounding me. I didn't know what to do. In that moment, I realized this town was not as cozy as it seemed. I couldn't shake the feeling that they were waiting for something more. I shivered, hoping for dawn to break before the darkness closed in. The next day, I woke up early, the sun barely peeking over the horizon. I felt restless, like I couldn't shake the feeling of something lurking just out of reach. I decided to go for a walk, hoping fresh air would clear my mind. The town looked peaceful, but the silence was deafening. As I walked past the familiar houses, I noticed Mrs. Dahlia sitting on her porch. She was staring at something on the ground. My heart raced. I needed answers, and she was my best shot. I approached slowly, ready to break the uncomfortable silence. "Good morning, Mrs. Dahlia," I said, forcing a smile. Her gaze shifted to me only for a moment before falling back to the ground. I squinted to see what she was looking at. It was a small, tattered book. The binding was worn and its pages were yellowed with age. "Did you find that?" I asked, leaning closer. Her expression was still blank, but I could see a flicker of something in her eyes. "It belonged to my daughter once," she whispered. "She never came back home." My stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" Before she could answer, a chorus of giggles floated through the air. I turned, but there was nothing but a cluster of trees at the end of the street. When I looked back, Mrs. Dahlia was gone, almost as if she had vanished into thin air. Feeling more panicked, I picked up the book. There was a name scrawled across the front, Lily. It felt heavy in my hands, not just because of its weight, but because it carried an eerie presence. I hesitated, then opened it. Inside were drawings and strange writings. The sketches showed children playing, some wearing old-fashioned clothes. Each turn of the page revealed more unsettling images. They were haunting. The laughter I had heard echoed in my mind, taunting me. I slammed the book shut and threw it into my bag. I needed to find more information, anything to understand what was happening in this town. As I walked back home, unease prickled at my skin. Was Lily the daughter Mrs. Dahlia mentioned? Why did her name haunt me? I began connecting the dots in a confused frenzy. The kids I had seen, the gifts left on my doorstep. That night I decided to confront my fears. I sat on my porch with the book beside me. The night felt thicker, and the air turned colder. Suddenly I heard soft whispers drifting in the breeze. They sounded like children, but the words were unclear. I felt my heart race. Then, in the darkness, I saw them. Shadows dancing along the edge of my yard. The whispers grew louder. "Play with us," they beckoned. Feeling a rush of terror, I grabbed the book, clutching it tightly. "What do you want?" I called out into the night. But the shadows faded and the laughter turned into frantic giggles that faded into the distance. I was left trembling, wondering if they would return. Then, a faint shape floated into view. Someone was standing near the tree line, watching me. I couldn't make out any features in the dim light, but I felt an intense stare. "Who are you?" I shouted. The figure didn't move. That's when I realized this was just the beginning, and I wasn't ready for what lay ahead. The next morning I barely slept. Every creak of the house sounded amplified in the quiet. I didn't know what had happened last night, but it gnawed at me when I tried to get ready for the day. I picked up my phone, scrolling through the pictures I had taken in the past week. Most were just normal snapshots, food, friends. But then I found one that caught my eye. It was a blurry photo of the playground at the park. In the background, there was a faint outline of several children, their faces indistinct but familiar. I felt my stomach drop. I didn't recall seeing anyone there when I took the picture. I needed answers. I decided to go to the town library. Books might hold secrets about the past of Lily and the strange things happening around here. As I made my way to the library, I noticed the streets felt emptier than usual. Not a soul in sight. It was unsettling, but I pressed on. The library smelled musty, like history was pressing in on me. I approached the front desk and asked the librarian about Lily, not entirely sure how to articulate my request. She raised an eyebrow, motions indicating hesitation. "Why do you want to know about her?" I was taken aback. "I just found her book. Her story is complicated," she said, her voice just above a whisper. "It's best to leave it alone." That was when my impatience kicked in. "I can't. I need to know." She studied me for a moment. Finally, she told me where I could find the records. It was a dimly lit archive at the back of the library. I walked toward it, heart pounding. Inside, the air thickened. Old books lined the shelves, their spines cracked. Dust dancing in the light filtering through a small window. I searched through file after file. Each one seemed to whisper secrets. I combed through papers until something caught my eye. A newspaper clipping from decades ago. It read, "Mysterious disappearances plague town. Lily Thompson missing for over 50 years. I felt a chill run through me as I read about the girl who vanished while playing at the park. The article mentioned a group of children playing a game they called the looping game, which was said to draw kids into another realm. I could barely breathe as I tried to process what I was reading. This was all connected. Just then, a noise broke the stillness. I turned quickly, the hairs on my neck standing on end. A figure stood in the doorway, slim and dressed in faded clothes, face lost in shadows. My heart raced, and panic surged through me. "Help us," the figure said, voice echoing, almost childlike. Fear gripped me, and I bolted. I sprinted out of the library, the clipping clutched in my shaking hand. I could still hear that voice trailing behind me. "Play with us." As I reached my car, breathless and shaken, I realized I couldn't just ignore it. I had to make sense of the pieces, but first, I needed safety. I locked the doors and sat in silence, staring blankly ahead. That's when I noticed something on my dashboard. Another small gift, a crumpled piece of paper. I reached for it, dread filling my stomach. When I unfolded it, my heart stopped. It was a drawing of a playground, and at the center was a girl with bright, familiar eyes. Lily. Only she hadn't just been a memory, she was calling to me. The question pounded in my mind. Why? And why now? I couldn't shake the feeling that Lily wasn't just a story. The drawing felt alive in my hands. It terrified me, yes, but it also ignited a curiosity I couldn't ignore. After a moment, I forced myself to breathe, the panic ebbing slightly. I looked in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the figure from the library. Nothing but emptiness behind me. I pulled my phone from my pocket, ready to search for any connection to the looping game. But I hesitated. Should I dig deeper or get far away from this town? In a moment of desperation, I decided to do both. I needed to find out more before I ran. I drove back to the library, heart racing, and decided to head to the local cafe afterward to gather my thoughts. It was a small town. If anyone knew more, it would be there. Inside the archive, I sifted through more newspapers, looking for anything related to other kids who had disappeared or the game. My fingers grazed over dusty pages, feeling like I was reaching for a truth long buried. Then I found another article. Local boy claims to have seen Lily Thompson at the old playground. My heart raced. The boy had given a chilling account of meeting her while playing in the park, saying she was trapped in a game with other children. Could it be true? Could she still be there, waiting for someone to remember? I quickly snapped a picture of the article with my phone. I was about to leave when I caught something out of the corner of my eye, a flicker of movement by the shelves. My breath hitched again. I turned, heart pounding. There it was, the figure from earlier just beyond my line of sight, shifting in the shadows. "Play with us," it said again, the childish voice fervent. Before I could react, it darted out of sight. My instincts screamed for action. I bolted back to my car, adrenaline surging. I glanced around the parking lot, scanning for anything out of place, but everything seemed normal, too normal. As I drove away, I felt the comforting hum of the cafe's sign in sight. I parked and slipped inside, the warm air wrapping around me. I took a seat at the back, hoping to blend in. I could process everything better with a cup of coffee. The walls resonated with quiet chatter, but I struggled to focus. I had to call someone. I dialed my friend, Sarah. She'd always been reasonable. Just as she picked up, a sudden chill swept through the cafe. The door swung open, and a gust of wind rushed in. I turned instinctively, my breath caught. There, standing in the doorway, was a girl. She wore a faded dress that seemed too old for this time, and her eyes? They shone with a brightness that felt hauntingly familiar. I clutched my phone tighter as she stepped closer. "You need to play," she whispered, her voice echoing in my mind. I barely registered the panic rising again because something in her gaze held my attention. I had to find out why. "Sarah, I have to go," I blurted before hanging up. I stood up, adrenaline propelling me forward. The girl was walking away now, as if leading me somewhere. I followed her, heart pounding. She glanced back, a faint smile tugging at her lips. I knew I was crossing a line, but I couldn't help myself. I had to know. Then I realized I wasn't just chasing answers. I was stepping into the looping game, and whatever happened next, I might not return. The girl led me through the narrow streets, her figure flickering in and out of sight like a candle in the wind. I followed so closely that I could almost touch her, but the distance remained unbridgeable. She turned into an alleyway, one I'd never noticed before, just behind the cafe. The pavement was cracked, weeds pushing through the gaps. "I know you're curious," she said, her voice a breathy melody. "But it's not what you think." "What do you mean?" I asked, my nerves surging as I stepped deeper into the shadows. "Who are you?" She glanced back and her eyes pierced me, demanding my silence. The air felt thick, almost electric. I wanted to turn back, but the impulse to know more turned my feet to lead. We arrived at a playground. I recognized it from the article, a dilapidated structure that hadn't seen children in years. The swings creaked in the faint breeze, and the sliding board showed signs of rust, but there was something undeniably alive about this place. "Here," she said, pointing at the sandpit. "They're waiting." My heart sank. In the dim light I could see movement. Shadows danced at the edges, small figures that looked like children playing. Some wore the same faded clothes as the girl, and others wore nothing at all, just shimmering, translucent grace. I felt the unease settle deeper in my chest. Is this real? Are you all trapped? I barely managed to ask, the words tasting heavy on my tongue. She nodded solemnly. The game never ends. Once you start, you can't stop until someone plays with you. Every instinct told me to run, to get as far away from this playground as possible. What do you mean? Who is someone? The girl turned her gaze back to the shadows. You're the one. You're meant to play. Just then, I heard laughter echoing from the darkness. It was sweet and innocent, yet laced with a chilling edge. I stepped back, fear enveloping me. My mind raced, flashing images of the disappearances from the articles. What happens if I play? They'll never let you leave, she answered, her smile fading as she watched the shadows swell. But if you don't, they'll come for you too. I felt the ground start to shift beneath my feet. The air thickened and a palpable tension gripped me. The laughter transformed into whispers, faint but relentless. Play with us, they urged, echoing the figure's earlier words. I stumbled back, facing the girl. I can't. But the playground grew darker, swallowing the fading light. Shadows surged forward, stretching out like claws. Panic surged within me as I turned, searching for an exit. Then everything went dark. I felt myself being pulled, a suffocating force wrapping around my body. I blinked, and there were no stars or shadows, just an endless void that felt like it could swallow my very soul. As I fought to breathe, one question loomed in my mind. How do I escape the looping game before I become just another voice in the darkness? I gasped, struggling against the void. It felt like I was sinking, my body weightless yet constrained. Panic clawed at my throat. My surroundings shifted again, and I felt a sudden jolt. Then I was back on solid ground, but it wasn't the playground anymore. The air was crisp and cold. I stood in a clearing, illuminated by a pale moon. The ground was littered with snow, like a soft blanket hiding the world beneath it. Trees surrounded me, their branches heavy with frost. For a moment, I thought I might be safe, but something felt off. It was eerily quiet. No laughter, no whispers, just an unsettling stillness. I moved forward cautiously, the crunch of snow beneath my feet echoing in the stillness. My breath came out in puffs, visible in the cold air. What had happened? Where was I? Then I noticed the figures flickering in the distance. At first I thought they were shadows moving between the trees, but as I squinted, I saw children, just like those I'd seen at the playground. They looked up at me with wide eyes, their faces pale, almost ghostly. "Play with us," one of them called, his voice breaking the silence like a fragile glass. He wore a bright red scarf, but it looked frayed and worn, like it had been there for ages. The hairs on my neck stood up. "No!" I shouted. "I don't want to play!" The boy's smile faltered, but he quickly recovered. "You have to. You're the chosen one." His words echoed ominously amidst the trees. I took a step back, heart racing. "Chosen? By who? Why me?" Another figure stepped forward. A girl this time, her eyes sparkling with an unsettling light. "It's not just a game. It's a chance to escape." "Escape from what?" I asked, my voice trembling. But before she could answer, the ground shook beneath my feet. My anxiety flared as I steadied myself against a tree. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught movement, and my stomach dropped. Shadows twisted around the trees, pulling the children closer, their joyous expressions turning to desperation. They reached for me, hands stretching out, urging me to join them. The whispers returned, louder now, filling my ears with frantic calls. I couldn't tell where they were coming from. My heart pounded. "Please come play. They begged, their voices harmonizing into a haunting chorus. The shadows lurked just beyond, waiting, watching. "I can't," I yelled back, torn between their pleas and the instinct to run. I had to think fast. What could I possibly do to break this cycle? That's when I noticed it. A small wooden toy lying in the snow, half buried and coated in frost. A familiar sight from my childhood. My fingers twitched, the urge to pick it up nearly overwhelming. I froze, caught between the children's voices and the danger lurking all around. I took a deep breath and knelt down, my heart pounding in my chest. Should I take the toy? Would it help me escape, or would it pull me deeper into the game? And just like that, a voice broke through the crowd. "No, don't!" I turned abruptly. The girl from the playground stood at the edge of the clearing, her face strained with urgency. "It's a trap. Don't fall for it." But the shadows pressed closer, and the children's voices shifted from playful to frantic. I was running out of time. The shadows twisted again, and the children's hands reached out farther, their fingers clawing at the air like desperate birds. With horror in my eyes, I realized I had to act. My chest tightened, panic mixing with a flicker of determination. I needed to escape this place. "Why are you doing this?" I shouted to the children, hoping to hold them back with my words. They stared blankly, as if my question hadn't pierced the fog that surrounded us. The boy with the red scarf stepped forward again. "You don't understand. The game is everything." Before I could respond, a howling wind swept through the clearing, sending the children's hair flying as if they were caught in a storm. The girl from the playground clutched the edge of a tree, her eyes darting to me, pleading. "You mustn't trust them. They lied to keep you here." With her words echoing in my mind, I took a quick glance at the toy in the snow, the red paint peeling, the wheels all but frozen over. If it's a trap, what does it want? I remained knelt, heart racing. "Freedom!" the girl exclaimed, her voice cutting through the yells of the other children now growing louder. "But not yours." The ground quaked again, as if the earth itself was trying to warn me. My instincts kicked in. I sprang to my feet and took a step back, my mind racing. What if I could distract them? They were so focused on me. "I'll play," I called out, my voice shaking. "Just give me a moment." The children's eyes widened, hope flickering despite their earlier desperation. "Really?" the boy asked, tilting his head. "You'll join us?" Just give me a second, I need to think." I knew I was stalling for time, but I felt trapped by the shadows creeping ever closer. Then I heard it. A distant sound muffled by the wind, the faint jingle of bells. My breath caught. Were they real? The sound brought memories of warmth, joy, and a time long gone. It echoed through the clearing, cutting through the tension like a knife. "What is that?" I whispered, half to myself. The children paused, confusion spreading across their pale faces. The shadows seemed to retreat, as if the sound had a power over them. "Please," I urged, suddenly feeling desperate again. This could be my chance. "Tell me where that sound is coming from." They exchanged glances, and for a fleeting moment the shadows released their grip. "It's to the right." The girl hesitated. "But you can't follow it, it leads to the worst part." "Worst part?" I asked, a mix of fear and curiosity flooding my mind. "What do you mean?" Before they could answer, the ground trembled once more. The shadows roared and the chilling wind increased, threatening to tear me away. I made my decision. I had to follow the sound. "Get back!" I yelled at the children, who were still frozen in surprise. When I turned, the jingle rang out again, clearer now. I raced toward it, the snow crunching violently beneath my feet, adrenaline fueling my escape. But as I broke through the tree line, the world shifted again. Everything blurred, and for a chilling moment I lost my footing. Just before everything went dark, I caught sight of a glimmer of light in the distance. Then, nothing but silence. I jolted awake, gasping for air. The cold bit into my skin like ice. I found myself sprawled on damp grass, the warmth of the firelight flickering nearby. Confusion settled over me like a fog. How did I get here? The clearing was different. The ominous trees were gone, replaced by a sparse line of pine trees that rustled gently in the wind. The familiar jingle of bells echoed faintly, tugging at my memories, but the sound was softer now, almost welcoming. I stood up slowly, readying myself for a fight or flight response, but neither seemed necessary. "Hey, over here!" a familiar voice called out. I whipped around and spotted the girl from the playground, sitting cross-legged by the fire. Her hair was now shining golden in the light. "I thought you were lost for good," she said, a grin breaking across her face. "I don't understand," I replied. "What happened? Where are the kids? The shadows?" My voice quivered as I tried to make sense of it all. She shrugged, her expression changing to one of concern. "They'll come for you, you know. This is a temporary safe space." She pointed toward the darkness beyond the firelight. "But they'll find you." "Who are they?" I felt the panic bubbling again. Something primal told me I needed to flee. Suddenly, the jingle rang through the air again, more insistent, and I turned toward the sound. "Stay with me," the girl urged, her eyes wide. "You can't go into the dark." But that cry for help was enough to send me moving. I darted past her, following the sound. With each step, the jingling grew louder, pulling me deeper into the shadows. My heart raced as I stumbled through a thicket, the sharp branches clawing at my arms. That's when I saw it. A tall figure cloaked in darkness stood beneath the trees, the source of the maddening jingle. It was hard to make out its features, but it was there, looming, almost beckoning me closer. "Stop!" I screamed, halting mid-step. "What do you want?" It turned its head slowly, revealing hollow eyes that seemed to suck in all the light around them. "You've come to join the game," it said, its voice a low rumble that vibrated in my chest. "No," I shouted, backpedaling as fear clawed at my throat. "I don't want any part of this." "Too late," it murmured, and the shadows behind it began to swirl, taking form. I sprinted back, panic giving me speed. The laughter of children echoed after me, mixed with the anguished cries of those who had already lost. Pushing through the thicket, I searched for the girl. I needed her help. But the forest seemed to pull away, branches snapping like bones underfoot. I could feel the darkness closing in, the laughter growing louder, hungry. As I turned, I caught a glimpse of her, standing at the edge of the firelight, watching me. "You have to trust me," she shouted, her voice desperate. "The light can protect you, but only if you come back." With the shadows closing in around me and that ominous figure still lingering, I had to choose. I could keep running deeper into the darkness or take a chance on her. On the light. Just as panic threatened to consume me, I realized this decision might seal my fate. And then I froze, torn between two worlds, neither of which seemed safe. My heart hammered loudly in my ears, drowning out the laughter and whispers that swirled around me. I glanced back at her, the girl bathed in warm light, her face a mixture of fear and determination. My instincts screamed for me to run, but her plea anchored me in place. But then the shadows stirred closer, their chilling presence sending a shiver through my entire being. I could almost feel their fingers curling around the fabric of my clothes. "Come back!" she yelled again, urgency in her voice. "They want to take you." The figure in the darkness remained still, like a predator waiting for its prey. I didn't want to join any game. My instincts pushed me toward light and safety, but curiosity tugged me toward the mystery lurking in the shadows. I was torn, between fear and an inexplicable need to uncover the truth of what was happening. The jingling grew more frenzied as if urging me to make a desperate choice. I felt an electric charge in the air, thick with tension. "If I go back, will I be safe?" I shouted to the girl, desperation lacing my words. "I can't promise you that," she shouted back, the firelight flickering behind her. "But it's the only chance you have." Just then, I stumbled again, this time tripping over a root that burst from the earth. I fell hard. Pain shot through my ankle, but adrenaline shot through my veins. I got back up and, in the same instant, the figure took a step toward me. It was slow, deliberate, the shadows swirling around its form like a cloak of despair. With no time left to think, I made my choice. I turned and bolted back toward the fire, feeling the heat wash over me like a protective barrier. I didn't look back, forcing my legs to move faster than they ever had. The laughter followed, getting closer, sharper. As I neared the edge of the light, I could hear the girl's voice cutting through the cacophony. "Hurry, you're almost here." I leaped back into the firelight, expecting safety, but instead I nearly collided with her. She caught my arms, holding me tight. "You made it," she exclaimed, her smile returning like sunlight breaking through a storm. But then, the shadows began to ripple around the edge of the light, inching closer. I turned, breathless as the figure walked right to the brink, the hollow eyes locked onto mine. "This isn't over," it whispered, its voice resonating deep within me. "Stay back," the girl cried, stepping in front of me. The flame flickered, illuminating the fear in her eyes. "It can't cross the light. Not yet." But that knowledge came with a heavy weight. I realized I was not just running from shadows. I was now entwined in something more, a game that wasn't going to end easily. What did it mean? Why was I chosen? As I tried to collect my breath, a sudden thought struck me. What if I was wrong to think I had escaped? That the shadows had merely retreated, biding their time? "Who are they really?" I asked, my voice a whisper now, uncertainty starting to creep in again. But before she could answer, the shadows began to shift restlessly beyond the firelight, the laughter returning, even more sinister this time. I knew they would be back, and I had to uncover what this game truly was before it consumed me entirely. And then, just as I steadied myself to confront the situation, everything went dark. I opened my eyes to a blinding light that pulled me from the depths of my confusion. I was lying on my living room floor, the familiar sight of my cozy couch surrounding me. The holiday decorations twinkled above, innocent and festive, contrasting sharply with the dread that clung to me like fog. Heart racing, I scrambled to my feet, the tangible remnants of the darkness still haunting my mind. I blinked at my surroundings, disbelief washing over me. Was it all a dream? Had I truly left that cursed playground behind? I rushed to the window, pulling back the curtains. A clear winter morning greeted me, the kind that made the world outside glisten like an untouched snow globe. I half expected shadows to dart across the street and laughter to ring out from unseen children. My throat tightened at the thought, but there was only silence, a deceptive calm. The clock on the wall ticked steadily, and as I listened, I realized I'd been gone for hours. Unease curled in my stomach as memories flooded back. The game, the shadows, the desperate whispers. It had felt all too real, yet here I stood in my house, untouched by darkness. But a nagging doubt began to settle deep within me. What if I hadn't truly escaped? I picked up my phone, trembling hands scrolling through photos. I searched for the evidence that insisted I hadn't just imagined it. The blurry snap of the playground sent chills down my spine, memories colliding, frantic laughter mingling with the echo of cries for help. That drawing of Lily still haunted my mind, a silent herald warning me I was entangled in something I didn't understand. Then, stepping away from the window, I caught a glimpse of something on the floor. I froze. Another gift. As I knelt down, my heart sank. It was the same wooden toy I had seen in the snow. My hands shook as I picked it up, still heavy from the frost of that place, and the jingle of bells echoed where the shadows once swirled. "Why?" I whispered, not sure who I was asking, myself or whatever force had pulled me into their realm. I felt a clammy grip on my heart, the lines between reality and the game beginning to blur. Without a single clue on how I had returned or what awaited me, I turned on my heel and glanced out the window once more. A chill ran through me. The same children I had seen in the shadows now stood across the street, their forms flickering in the winter light. I gasped, rubbing my eyes, but they remained, faces of twisted innocence, grinning, beckoning. I staggered back, tumbling against the wall. The town, once warm and inviting, suddenly darkened in my mind. They were still there, waiting, the boundaries between worlds hanging by a fragile thread. What had I let unfold? All those whispers, "Play with us," churned in my thoughts. Perhaps the game had never truly ended. The freedom I yearned for now felt like a mockery. The shadows had receded, but only to lure me back when I least expected. I took a deep breath, the air in the room thickening with the weight of unanswered questions. I moved back to the window, unable to look away. The world outside felt deceptively normal, yet a sense of dread lingered like a scent in the air. I grasped the toy tight enough to feel the splintering wood press into my palm. Though my neighbors appeared oblivious, laughter still hung faintly in the air. I felt them drawing closer, the shadows ebbing and flowing just outside my perception. Perhaps I had escaped physically, but my mind remained tethered to that playground, a place where the laughter never truly ceased. As I watched the children, I couldn't shake the feeling that this moment was but the calm before the storm. I was not free. I was merely waiting for the replay. The next time they would come for me. Would I ever truly escape the game that played by its own rules? I was left standing there, clutching the toy, gazing into the haunting smile of a ghostly girl, forever marked by curiosity and uncertainty.